If you think your money is backed by gold, you're living in a world that ended long ago. And if you think it's backed by nothing, you're missing the part that actually matters. Because modern money is backed by something. It's just not a metal in a guarded vault. And it's not a printing press either. Printing is easy. Getting belief is the hard part. It's a system. And the system has one rule. You don't get to opt out, not cheaply. Subscribe to Money Explained Money. Simplified. Now watch what money really is. So what is money backed by now, if it's not gold and not treasure sitting in storage? Why does a dollar still buy real things? Why does it still work at all, every day? To answer that, you have to follow one story. Gold Promise Breaks System Money. A story that starts with gold, becomes a global contract, snaps in 1971, then mutates. In the early 1900s, the gold standard wasn't just a policy, it was psychology, a psychological contract. Paper felt like a claim on something hard, scarce, and real. The idea was simple. Your currency wasn't just paper, it was a claim on fixed gold. A dollar meant someone, somewhere, would exchange this note for a set amount of metal. That belief did two powerful things, and both shaped how people trusted money. First, it made money feel stable because gold doesn't swing overnight like politics can. Second, it restrained governments. Convertibility meant you couldn't create money freely. If money must be redeemable in gold, you can't create unlimited currency indefinitely. You're limited by gold. You actually hold spending and credit eventually hit a hard wall. That's why people romanticize it. Gold feels like a lock on leaders getting reckless. A world where money is honest, because it's physically anchored to something solid. But that anchor came with a hidden cost, and nostalgia rarely includes this chapter. Gold didn't just back money. Gold caged money, and it caged the entire economy with it. Because the money supply could grow only as fast as gold could be mined and shipped, that's fine in a slow economy. But the 20th century wasn't slow. It accelerated hard. Industry expanded fast. Trade grew. Then war arrived, and war demands spending at scale. And when a country goes to war, it needs funding at a speed rigid money can't match. In a crisis, an economy needs flexibility, liquidity, credit expansion, and fast settlement. But a gold system can't easily stretch, so under pressure, it doesn't bend cleanly. It squeezes. Credit tightens. Money becomes scarce. Downturns deepen and last longer. Gold forced stability, but it punished flexibility. The trade-off becomes brutal in emergencies. So the world tried to build something that felt like gold, without the cage attached. After World War II, the world wanted order. So it built a new global money system. It sounded like gold, but it wasn't gold. The chain was redesigned and centralized. The deal was simple. The US dollar would link to gold directly, at the top of the chain, and other major currencies would link to the dollar. So they linked to gold indirectly. The world moved from every currency promises gold to the world promises dollars. And dollars promised gold one step removed, one layer deeper in trust and coordination. It looked like stability, but the risk moved into one promise, the US promise. Because now the whole system depended on the United States keeping that convertibility deal. And the problem with promises is they don't break when you want, they break when belief flips. As global trade grew, the world needed more dollars, reserves, settlement, and invoicing. The system needed dollar liquidity, enough oil to keep trade and finance from grinding down. But the only way to supply enough dollars was for the US to send dollars out consistently. And that created a pressure hiding in the background, like a crack beneath fresh paint. If the US supplied too few dollars, the system would choke. Trade slows, credit gets scarce. If the US supplied too many, the promise would crack too many dollars relative to the gold. So the system wasn't truly backed by gold anymore. It was backed by discipline instead, and it required perfect discipline from one country, year after year, forever. That's impossible. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, the strain became obvious, not theoretical anymore. The US was spending heavily. Commitments were expensive. Dollars flooded outward. But gold reserves didn't rise the same way. The math started to look like a bad bargain. And once other countries saw that imbalance, they did the rational thing: protect themselves. If dollars are convertible to gold, and you suspect the promise won't hold, redeem now. That's how systems like this collapse. Not with a crash, but with a run on the promise. A run on convertibility itself, because in a promise system, timing becomes survival. Then came the moment that changed money forever, and most people still misunderstand it. In 1971, the US stopped letting other countries exchange dollars for gold at the window. That was the monetary divorce, the moment the world stopped pretending paper was metal. From that point on, money became something else. Fiat currency, backed by rules and capacity. Money backed not by a commodity, but by law, institutions, enforcement, and public confidence. And this is where people get stuck. They say, so money is backed by nothing. But that's not true. Modern money is backed by a system that creates permanent demand. Start with the simplest forcing function: taxes. Governments require taxes in their currency. That single rule forces anyone living inside the system to need the currency to function. You can dislike it. You can complain about it. But you can't ignore it without consequences. Money is also backed by enforceable contracts, debts, wages, prices, and obligations written in it. Courts enforce those contracts. Regulators police the rails. The state defends the unit. So the currency becomes the language the economy speaks, and opting out becomes costly. But there's another layer most people miss. Most money isn't cash. It's bank credit. Your bank balance is an IOU, a claim on the bank spendable because the system accepts it. Cards, transfers, and apps move claims, not stacks of bills. That's the real modern machine. And behind that machine sits the central bank, acting as the settlement layer for banks. The central bank doesn't back money with gold, it backs settlement with its own liabilities. That means bank money works because banks can settle with central bank money at the core. So money today is not a thing you hold. It's a claim you can use to settle obligations. It works because the economy is built to accept it, and the legal system enforces acceptance. But money also has to connect to reality. Claims only matter if real output exists to buy. That's the quiet truth. Fiat is redeemable, not for gold, but for goods and services. For labor, for production, for energy, for logistics, for the real constraints underneath. Now, can governments create money endlessly? They can create currency, but not real resources. They can't print more food. They can't print more housing. They can't print more electricity. If money grows faster than real output, something has to give. Prices rise and trust weakens. People protect themselves. Contracts reprice. Politics heats up. The system starts to feel fragile. Fiat traded one constraint for another. Gold was a physical constraint. Fiat is a trust constraint. And that brings up the last question people always ask. If money isn't backed by gold, why hold gold? Because gold didn't stop being valuable. It just stopped being the foundation of currency systems. Gold is held as a crisis asset, a hedge when trust breaks and promises feel less believable. A store of value that doesn't depend on any single government's promise holding tomorrow. It's not the engine. It's the fire extinguisher on the wall, used when confidence catches fire. So what is money backed by now? Not gold, not paper, not a vault with bars and locks. It's backed by an entire economy running on it. Taxes demand it, contracts assume it, courts enforce it. It's backed by institutions that keep payments working, and by real output that makes the claims meaningful. Gold used to be the promise. Now the promise is the system itself, and the system is the collateral. And the uncomfortable truth is this. The question isn't, is money backed by something real? The real question is, how stable is the system backing it when people stop trusting it? Because that's where the next layer begins, when belief turns fragile and coordination turns expensive.